Hello everyone, I hope everyone's alright. I've got a Horrid Henry story that I'm going to read for you now, and the story is called Horrid Henry's Stinkbomb. I hate you, Margaret, shrieked sour Susan. She stumbled out of the secret club tent. I hate you too, shrieked Moody Margaret. Sour Susan stuck out her tongue. Moody Margaret stuck hers out back. I quit, yelled Susan. You can't quit. You're fired, yelled Margaret. You can't fire me, I quit, said Susan. I fired you first, said Margaret, and I'm changing the password. Go ahead, see if I care. I don't want to be in the secret club anymore, said Susan sourly. Good, because we don't want you. Moody Margaret flounced back inside the secret club tent. Sour Susan stalked off. Free at last. Susan was sick and tired of her ex-best friend, Bossy Boots Margaret. Blaming her for the disastrous raid on the Purple Hat Fort when it was all Margaret's fault was bad enough. But then asking stupid Linda to join the secret club without even telling her. Susan hated Linda even more than she hated Margaret. Linda had invited Susan to her sleepover party, and she was a copycat. But Margaret didn't care. Today she'd made Linda chief spy. Well, Susan had had enough. Margaret had been mean to her once too often. Susan heard gales of laughter from inside the club tent. So they were laughing, were they? Laughing at her, no doubt. Well, she'd show them. She knew all about Margaret's top secret plans, and she knew someone who'd be very interested in that information. Halt! Password! Smelly toads, said Perfect Peter. He waited outside Henry's Purple Hat Fort. Wrong, said Henry. What's the new one then, said Perfect Peter. I'm not telling you. You're fired, remember? Perfect Peter did remember. He had hoped Henry had forgotten. Can I join again, Henry? Said Peter. No way, said Henry. Please, said Peter. No, said Horrid Henry. Ralph's taken over your duties. Rude Ralph poked his head through the branches of Henry's lair. No babies allowed, said Rude Ralph. We don't want you here, Peter, said Horrid Henry. Get lost. Perfect Peter burst into tears. Cry, baby, jeered Horrid Henry. Cry, baby, jeered Rude Ralph. That did it. Mum! Wailed Perfect Peter. He ran towards the house. Henry won't let me play, and he called me a crybaby. Stop being horrid, Henry, shouted Mum. Peter waited. Mum didn't say anything else. Peter started to wail louder. Mum! Henry's being mean to me. Leave Peter alone, shouted Mum. She came out of the house. Her hands were covered in dough. Henry, if you don't stop... Mum looked around. Where's Henry? In his fort, snivelled Peter. I thought you said he was being mean to you, said Mum. He was, wailed Peter. Just keep away from him, said Mum. She went back into the house. Perfect Peter was outraged. What was that? Why hadn't she punished him? Henry had been so horrid he deserved to go to prison for a year, 2 years, and just get a crust of bread for a week, and Brussels sprouts. Ha! That would serve Henry right. But until Henry went to prison, how could Peter pay him back? And then Peter knew exactly what he could do. He checked carefully to see that no one was shouting. Then he sneaked over the garden wall and headed for the secret club tent. He isn't, said Margaret. She wouldn't, said Henry. He's planning to swap our lemonade for dungeon drink, said Margaret. Yes, said Peter. She's planning to Stinkbomb Purple Hand Fort, said Henry. Yes, said Susan. How dare she, said Henry. How dare she, said Margaret. I'll easily put a stop to that. Linda, she barked. Hide the lemonade. Linda yawned. Hide it yourself, she said. I'm tired. Margaret glared at her, then hid the jug under a box. Ha ha. Won't Henry be shocked when he sneaks over here and there's no drink to spike, gloated Margaret. Peter, you're a hero. I award you the triple star, the highest honour of the secret club. Oh, thanks, said Peter. It was nice being appreciated for a change. So, from now on, said Moody Margaret, you're working for me. OK, said the traitor. Horrid Henry rubbed his hands. This was fantastic. At last he had a spy in the enemy's camp. He'd easily defend himself against that stupid Stinkbomb. Margaret would only let him off if he was in the fort. His sentry would be on lookout, armed with a glue gun. When Margaret tried to sneak in with her Stinkbomb, kapow! Hang on a sec, said Horrid Henry. Why should I trust you? Because Margaret is mean and horrible, and I hate her, said Susan. So from now on, said Horrid Henry, you're working for me. Susan wasn't sure she liked the sound of that. Then she remembered Margaret's mean cackle. OK, said the traitor. Peter sneaked back into the garden and collided into someone. Ouch, said Peter. Watch where you're going, snapped Susan. They glared at each other suspiciously. What are you doing at Margaret's? Said Susan. Nothing, said Peter. What are you doing at my house? Nothing, said Susan. Peter walked towards Henry's fort, whistling. Susan walked towards Margaret's tent, whistling. Well, if Susan was spying on Henry for Margaret, Peter certainly wasn't going to warn him. Serves Henry right. Well, if Peter was spying on Margaret for Henry, Susan certainly wasn't going to warn her. Serves Margaret right. Dungeon drinks, eh? Margaret liked that idea much better than her Stinkbomb plot. I've changed my mind about the Stinkbomb, said Margaret. I'm going to swap his drinks for dungeon drink instead. Good idea, said lazy Linda. Less work. Stinkbombs, eh? Henry liked that much better than his dungeon drink plot. Why hadn't he thought of that himself? I've changed my mind about the dungeon drinks, said Henry. I'm going to Stinkbomb her instead. Yeah, said Rude Ralph. When? Now, said Horrid Henry. Come on, let's go to my room. Horrid Henry opened his stinky Stinkbomb kit. He bought it with his grandma. Mum would never let him buy it, but because Grandma had given him the money, Mum couldn't do anything about it. Ha ha ha. Now, which pong would he pick? He looked at the test tubes filled with powder and read the gruesome labels. Bad breath, dog poo, rotten eggs, smelly socks, dead fish, sewer stench. I'd go for dead fish, said Ralph. That's the worst. Henry considered. How about we mix dead fish and rotten eggs? Yeah, said Rude Ralph. Slowly, carefully, Horrid Henry measured out a teaspoon of dead fish powder and a teaspoon of rotten eggs powder into a special pouch. Slowly, carefully, Rude Ralph poured 150 millilitres of secret Stinkbomb liquid into a bottle and capped it tightly. All they had to do was add the powder to the bottle outside the secret club and run. Ready, said Horrid Henry. Ready, said Rude Ralph. Whatever you do, said Horrid Henry, don't spill it. So you've come crawling back, said Moody Margaret. I knew you would. No, said Sour Susan. I just happened to be passing. She looked around the secret club tent. Where's Linda? Margaret scowled. Gone. Gone for today or gone forever? Said Susan. Forever, said Margaret savagely. I won't ever see that lazy lump again. Margaret and Susan looked at each other. Susan tapped her foot. Margaret hummed. Well, said Margaret. Well, what? Said Susan. Are you rejoining the secret club as chief spy or aren't you? I might, said Susan. And I might not. Suit yourself, said Margaret. I'll call Gertruda and ask her to join instead. OK, said Susan quickly. I'll join. Should she mention her visit to Henry? Better not. After all, what Margaret didn't know wouldn't hurt her. And, no, now, about my Stinkbomb plot, said Margaret. I've decided. Something shattered on the ground outside the tent. A ghastly, gruesome, grisly, stinky stench filled the air. Ah! Screamed Margaret, gagging. It's a stink bomb! Help! Help! Shrieked Sour Susan. Stink bomb! Help! Help! Victory! Horrid Henry and Rude Ralph ran back to the Purple Hand fort and rolled around on the floor, laughing and shrieking. What a triumph! Margaret and Susan screaming. Margaret's mum screaming. Margaret's dad screaming. And the stink. Wow! Horrid Henry had never smelled anything so awful in his life. This called for a celebration. Horrid Henry offered Ralph a fistful of sweets and poured 2 glasses of fizzy whiz drinks. Cheers, said Henry. Cheers, said Ralph. They drank. Ah! Choked Rude Ralph. Bleach! Yelped Horrid Henry, gagging and spluttering. We've been dungeon drinked. And then Horrid Henry heard a horrible sound. Moody Margaret and Sour Susan were outside the Purple Hand fort, chanting a victory chant. Na-ni, na-ni, na-na. And there you go. Horrid Henry stink bomb. They stink bombed each other. Hope you enjoyed the story. See you soon. Bye-bye.